on all of the standard objects in Salesforce that hold data, like accounts, leads, contacts, opportunities, and then any custom objects, have a list view up on the top left that you can then pick and basically sort your criteria by. So when you're doing list views, when you do have Salesforce, you do have some basic list views that Salesforce gives you. All open leads is a standard one, my open, my unread. Those, and then today's, those are standard views that Salesforce gives you. And basically what they do is they basically filter on different criteria. So like all open leads, if we were to go to that list view, and then we would see all our open leads in the system. And by editing it, you can see that our lead status is not equal to unqualified, so it's also all unconverted leads. So this is a standard Salesforce list view that you can get. Now, list views are very, very handy tools, and I personally can't live without them. I actually use them more than I use reports because it enables me to work with my customers and my cases quite quickly and easily. And so when naming your list views, let's go over to our accounts here. When naming your list views, you want to choose naming that's going to make sense to people. So like I have different record types in here for like contractors and facilities. So these are nice and easy naming conventions. When working with opportunities, so I've got a couple in here so that all one opportunities, all open. Primary campaigns, that doesn't really make much sense to me. What is primary campaigns? Well, so then if you click into it, you still don't really know what it is until you actually go in and you look and say, oh, well, the primary campaign source is not equal to blank. So, and closed equals false. So, you know, on something like this, we may want to make it, say, if we clear out our view unique name, which is actually a back-end system. It has to be there. It is unique. But if you clear it out, then you can actually type up in the top line, and it will automatically populate the bottom. So maybe I would want to put opportunities with. Now, by having opportunities with primary campaigns, I click here, it populates down here for my unique name through the API. I save that. Now that makes a little more sense. Now I know what I'm looking for. So I know that I'm going to see opportunities with a primary campaign. And there's my primary campaign source. So, and if you're wondering, by the way, that primary campaign source is not actually available from the list view on the opportunity. What I did is I actually created a formula that took the primary campaign source and turned it into a text field. So it's a text field hidden on the page layout that then allows me to use it as a list view field. We'll be covering more of that on workarounds in a little bit. So on the naming convention, like I said, you really want to make sure that these are named well so that people can easily understand what they are at a quick glance. Another good one is neglected leads. So I could just put neglected leads in here, and then people wouldn't really know, okay, what constitutes a neglected lead. So neglected lead over 14 days, and so this shows my, any leads that no activity or last modified in the last 14 days. You really don't have enough room to put all that in. You can't put in that last activity and last modified, but you want to make sure you get as much as you can in here. I believe you have like 40 characters that you can use. So you want to make sure that you do have enough information in here that people can, at a glance, go in and take a quick look and know exactly what that list view is. All right, so let's move on into filter criteria. And so, really good one here is our neglected leads. As you can see with our filter criteria, we first start out with what leads you're actually going to be looking at. Are they all, or are they mine? My unconverted leads is very nice. Any object that you have in Salesforce that has a list view should have a My view in it. And this saves you the hassle of having to create a view for Frank and a view for Bill and a view for John and go down the line. By just having it My unconverted leads or My accounts or My contacts or My open opportunities, that saves you the hassle of having to create one for everybody on your company. And you can also view by queues if a record is part of a queue or part of a campaign. And then you can also view, then you get into the actual filter criteria. So once you're in the filter criteria section, this is basically every field that you have on that record. And as an administrator, you should have access to all fields. But remember, when you do create your list views, that some people may not actually have access to these fields, and they may not be able to see them. So if, say, I had a user that did not have access to company and I'm filtering on company, that will work. But if I put company down here in available columns to display, he will not see that if they do not have access to that actual field. So you want to be careful on that if you're using field level security. And I do have a question that the difference between reports and list views is that list views is only one object, and reports you can have different. And that is correct. So you'll see in here that these fields are all lead fields on the lead detail page. So leads with activities, no. You do have a last activity field that you can use, but that's actually on the lead page. Any accounts with contacts? No, because you're actually filtering on just the one record of accounts, or the other way, contacts with accounts. You're filtering on just the contact, not the account. So that is correct. List views are single object. They do not cross-object. You can actually use cross-object formula fields and put those in your list views, though. So if the cross-object formula field, you have a field on the contact that's a cross-object formula field pulling from the account that's, say, maybe account type, then yes, because it's now on the contact detail page, you could go contacts with cross-object formula account type of industry, something like that. So hopefully that answered your question for you. And so with the, like I said, with the filters, you do, like I said, you have all the different pages or fields that are on your detail page. Then you have your operators. Equals, not equal to, you actually have quite a few. Starts with, contains, and all the different values that you can choose. And you want to be careful. So like equals, say if you wanted to use text field and equals, you can actually run into a bit of trouble. You may actually want to use contains. That, because equals is straight, so it means it has to, if you have a text field and equals and, well, there may be an and in there, but it's only going to look if and is the only thing in there if it's equals. Contains gives you a lot more room. And then for your values, you depending on what you've selected for your fields, on your values, if you're using pick list, you can actually use the lookup and choose different pick list values. And so you can choose one or more. And what it does is it actually puts them in as with a comma. So that comma actually means it's an or statement. And so what this does now is it says lead status not equal to unqualified or open or working. Or now I have unqualified in there twice because it was already there once before. Another little thing you got to watch out for. So if we clear that and we start over, we'll do our unqualified. Now, here's something you do have to watch out for. If you put a comma at the end, you're looking at lead status not equal to unqualified or blank. And since lead status is a required field, this view will now show no records whatsoever. And let's go ahead and try it out. So now actually, I'm sorry, it's now showing all the unqualifieds, or I think I had that as a not equal to. Let me equal it. There we go. My mistake. So it's now blank or unqualified. And since you can't have a blank lead status, it's a required field. And so then you want to make sure that you do keep those commas out of there as far as next to the end. So you can separate with commas, but make sure you have a value afterwards, unless you are actually looking for blank values. All right, so once we've done our filter criteria, and some of this filter criteria can get pretty dynamic, and so you can actually use the field filters help over on the right. And what that does is it'll bring up the help topic for it. And actually in the tips for entering filter criteria, very, very handy tools. There's some very handy tools in here and you can even just do a search in Salesforce for this tips for entering criteria. And in here is your special date values. And these I use a lot. These special date values work in reports and list views, and you have a considerable number of them that makes these dynamic so that you don't have to go in and constantly change stuff. And so all of these different values, this month, last 90 days, last any number of days, last quarter, this quarter, last year, this year, and then you get into fiscals. So there's a considerable number of views that you can set up dynamically so that you don't have to go in and constantly change it all the time. And so you can find those special date values for criteria. And so you can find those there. You can find them through the field filters help. And in the field filters help, you then go to the tips for entering the criteria, and that in turn brings you to those special date values. All right, so from the fields to filter on, you then have the fields to display. So on the left is the fields that you can pick, all the fields that are on the page, and on the right are the fields that you're actually displaying as columns. The top column is the left column, the bottom one is the right, and then you can change them up and down however you like. Please remember you can only have 15 in here, so you want to pick wisely. And like I said, if somebody is viewing this list view and they don't have access through field level security to see those fields, then those columns will not show up. Visibility is something that we see a lot of, where we see mistakes. And what happens is when you create a list view or you clone a list view, it's visible to all users, is what we end up seeing. And that doesn't always work, because like this list view, I'm going to go ahead and cancel it so we can see back into it. When you're doing a list view, you want to have it basically be thinking about who's going to use it. And I can't tell you how many times where we've seen go in and take a look at a company's list views, and they'll have 30 or 40 or 50 of them in there. And when you actually get down to the nitty-gritty, all of those are basically only used by a certain number of people. So you really want to make sure that these are only visible to the ones that you want to see. Unfortunately, as a system administrator, when you're creating them, you're going to see them all, unless it's visible only to me. And in that case, then whoever does it with a visible only to me only sees it in their personal list views. As system administrators, you do have these other permissions to make it visible to other groups or users, roles, and so you've got your different roles, your public groups, and or roles and internal, or roles and portal subordinates. So this list view here is basically leads that neglected leads over the last 14 days, so where they have no activity in the last 14 days or last modified date is not in the last 14 days. So I want all of my marketing directors to be able to see these. Now, if I were to make it visible to all, then obviously everybody sees it. And you can split between roles and groups. So I could also do all partner users. So now I have not only roles in this view, but I also have groups in this view. And you cannot actually pick a user, so it has to be either roles or groups. And looks like some questions here. Let's see. So we have a couple of questions. So I had a question on doing a default list view when you click into a particular tab. That's a question I've actually seen asked quite a few times. And so yes, when you click into a tab, you're always going to have your main tab with the either the reports or tools, or for accounts you have the same thing, reports, tools. You do have 3 options: recently created, recently modified, recently viewed. To actually then, if I wanted to go to my all accounts, I do have to click go. This is sticky, so it will always be the last view I look at. So if I only want contractors, and I come back to and I go to contacts and I come back to accounts, contractors will still be up there, but I have to click go. You cannot actually have, unless you overwrite with a Visualforce page, you cannot actually have a list view automatically run every time you click a tab. You'll always come to this main tab section where you can do your recently viewed, recently created, or modified. All right, then I had another question as well. And is there a way to just adjust the width of the columns? And yes, with dynamic list views, so if we go to our all accounts here, all of your columns are kind of set, but maybe you want to be able to see more information. And a really good one I have here is the, let's see, that is my contacts, and that is my bounced contacts. So you'll notice that these are kind of tightly, and then this one's kind of really stretched out. When you first do a view, it'll always come out to about normal and about even on each. So if I edit this and maybe put in a, let's go say a first name, and we'll put that in there and move it up. And now save it. It resets all my columns, so it gives them all the same size. You can change these, so I can drag and make it smaller, and drag and make it bigger, and drag and make it bigger, and then drag and make it smaller. And this is sticky. So now, until this view is edited again, I can make this nice and small, and then come over to my bounced reason that's kind of truncated here, and change it just like you would an Excel column, and bring it out to whatever size you want. Then when I go someplace else, I go over to my accounts and look at my accounts, and then go to my contacts and check a different view, and then go into my bounce contacts again. That stays the same. So once you've set it, until that is actually edited and saved, then it wipes everything out. But yes, you can adjust all your columns to the sizes you want. All right, so let's go on to cloning versus new, creating new. And one other question on that is, can you word wrap? Unfortunately, no. It's when you're using the enhanced list view, the word wrap no longer exists, and that is an issue out on the Salesforce ID Exchange, and so they would, they are a lot of people asking for that. All right, so you can, when editing a view, you can save as. Be careful when you're doing that. A lot of times people do not come all the way down to the bottom, and we see quite often that they'll change criteria, change the name and everything, and then save as. Now they've automatically, even though that was their list view, they've made it visible to all. So we do see that quite often. So when you are saving as, be sure to make sure that if you do have your visibility restrictions, make sure that you do make that you've got those set correctly, because we do quite often see cloned list views that really are for only a certain group of people instead of everybody. And so let's go on to the mass edits with list views. This is one of my favorite things. In the mass edits with the list views, you do have to have inline editing and enhanced list views turned on, and those are actually over here under Customize, Setup, Customize, and User Interface. So you do need enhanced list views and inline editing turned on, and then the user themselves needs the mass edit from list permission, and that's in the PowerPoint that you will be receiving on their profile, so that they can actually mass edit your different list views. And so there are certain fields that can be mass edited and certain fields that cannot. When you're hovering your mouse over a list view and you notice a pencil, then you can actually edit that. So like 3 systems money. Well, that's or maybe 3C systems. Man, I forgot to put in what this actually was. I can double click, or actually I can select that, double click into it, and that's actually took me to the record. I clicked one too many times, so let me get back to that. So go and select it and edit, and I now want to call this 3C Systems Cash. I just changed the name of this opportunity without ever going to the opportunity. And you can only do certain fields. If you don't see that pencil, then you cannot, or if there's a lock, you cannot actually change it. Obviously, last modified and last activity date, you can't change. Those are system fields. But like the close date, maybe I want to change my close date right here without going in. I can go in and now pick a different close date. Save it and refresh my list view. There we go. Now I can do this with multiple. Say I've got a bunch of opportunities with close dates in the past. And so with all these close dates in the past, my sales reps are kind of slacking off here. They're still in the open status, but boy, I got some close dates back here on 2010. I really want to move those up. So I'm going to sort by my owners, and I know my partner account. You know, he's got all these ones that are on 12/31. Let's change all those. So we can actually pick multiple, and you can pick up to 200 at a time. And if you can only see a certain number, there is a drop-down at the bottom that you can select how many pages or how many records to show on your page. So I have it set for 50. You can set it up to 200 records per page, and then you can select one or all of those 200 at a time. That's the most you can mass edit at one time. So we've selected these 7, and I'm going to change all of his close dates. So I can go in here, and I'm going to give him a close date of February 2012. Let's give him the 23rd. So now I can either pick one, the one I clicked on, or I can pick all 7 of those records. Once I save, all 7 of those records have now been refreshed. Never even had to go into them. Refresh, now they're gone because this is actually filtering on close date is less than today. So since the close date is listed today, I just updated those. Those are now out of my list. Very, very easy to mass update your records. And we do have a question. Is it possible to set the My Tasks list view in my home to edit the date field? Task fields are fields that are kind of tough. There are some standard fields that don't support inline editing, and this is part of the PowerPoint that you'll get. And there's also a help topic on inline editing that will show you about that, and a couple different ways you can get to it if you just go into help and training and type inline editing. And that's actually one thing I did want to show you. There are certain fields that cannot be used with the inline editing. And let's see, where is that? So unsupported behaviors, see, special cases. So these are detail pages, but tasks, there's only certain fields that are edited, and this works the same for detail and for inline edits. So you can actually go to inline editing here, and the different, well, actually that brought me right back to the same spot. But yeah, so there's a table of the fields that are not editable, like stage, and task. A really good one is maybe you want to mass close a bunch of tasks. So if we were to go to our task activities, which are actually on your home page underneath your calendar, there's that link for the activity list view. When you click into that, that brings you into all the different activities. So say like My Activities. And so some of these fields, the reason that I'm not actually able to edit this subject right here is because with record types, you do have to set a filter. So we would do task equals true. Now we put a filter in, so it's not looking at events, it's only looking at tasks. Now I can edit my subject. So I can go in and call Frank. Little things that you have to watch for, and now I've changed that to call Frank. That is in PowerPoint, that when you're doing list views, that you do have to, record types or tasks, it either has to be, you have to have that filter in there. And another one like that you can't access. I have a closed task on here. So my closed task list, task equals true, closed equals false. So this is all open tasks that I have in Salesforce. This is actually all open tasks. This is not just mine, it's all. And the status field is not editable. You cannot close this. So what I've actually done is created a checkbox on the task page that actually fires a workflow. The workflow does a field update, which then updates my task. So there's my call Frank, and I actually want to close it. So we'll select it, we'll click into it, close it, fire it. It's now going to run the workflow, and this is going to disappear because it's now a closed task. So when I refresh, Call Frank is now gone. We've just closed Call Frank. So there are ways to work around the fields that are not able to be edited. And basically any custom field can be edited. That's my closed task that I just put in there. So that's a custom field that I just put in. So say, for instance, you may have opportunities. and your opportunities, you do your all open opportunities, and maybe you want to set all your stages or something. You really can't, not in this list view. But you could do a workflow with a checkbox that would then, or even a pick list that would then use the criteria to change it to whatever you liked, and then that workflow would make that change. So there are workarounds, assuming that you can use workflow if you're using Enterprise Edition. So is it possible to set the My Tasks list view in my home to edit the date field? So if that field, if you go back to your home and then come down under the activities, and the due date is not a editable field. The call is, the name is not, so very few task fields are editable. The date is not one of them. You could use a workflow where you could put custom date, and then in that custom date you would be able to put a date in, and then that date could populate with field update into the actual date field. So those are your possible workarounds for the different tasks and for our different fields that are not able to select. So like priority, I can't even select it, but I could actually create a new custom field like a pick list and pick what priority and use workflow to update this field. All right, so basically we have covered our different types of list views and for the different types of objects. Now, one thing on the activities list views that you really should be using if you're using tasks in Salesforce is My Delegated Activities. This one is very handy when you're assigning tasks to other people. Salesforce gives you the default of all, so it's actually all, there is no filter, it's just My Delegated Activities. And so I would recommend taking that and, maybe cloning it, saving it as, make the first one, call it My Open, and make the first one My All, or make another one My All. Just because the fact that you may have a whole bunch that are out there and you only want to see the ones that are open. And Salesforce just gives you this main view. And you'll also notice that there's no field selected here, but yet when you go to view it, you've got all these different columns. These are the default ones. These come from Salesforce. So when you first start up Salesforce, you'll have some fields or some list views that you will see none here. And that's actually from Salesforce when it was first started and when you first signed up for Salesforce, and those are just the default fields that you're going to get. So if I were to put in name in this and just drag one of these over, it would literally clear everything else out of there. And so then I would have to go back and pick all the fields that I wanted to put in, so I'm not going to do that. All right, we have covered, let me get back to our PowerPoint here. So go back to our start, and so we've done our naming conventions, our filter criteria, our fields to display, visibility settings, and cloning versus creating new, and then with the mass edits, the permissions that you need, and the non-editable fields. And there's where you can editing. Here I put in editing data using inline editing and Salesforce Help. That'll tell you about all of the different fields that can and cannot be edited. And then your possible workarounds for non-editable fields. So now we can open this up for Q&A. If anybody does have any questions, I know I've answered some questions during the presentation. So let's go ahead. I'm going to actually look through and make sure I didn't miss any. I do have one question. What is a workflow? And so workflow is automation in Salesforce that allows, based on criteria, either emails to be sent or tasks to be assigned or fields to be updated based on certain criteria. It's an automation. And if you have Enterprise Edition or Unlimited Edition or Developer Edition, you can use Workflow. Professional Edition does not support Workflow. All right, do we have any other questions? There is a chat box on the control panel and for the GoToMeeting, and if you have any questions, please go ahead and type it in, and I would be glad to answer that for you. Here's a question. Using record types, you cannot mass edit? No, that is not correct. You can mass edit with record types. And that is, I believe, back here, right there, number 3. If your organization uses record types, inline editing with lists is only available when all of the records in the list are the same type. So just like I showed you for tasks for the activities in number 4, you have to specify a task or event for contacts or any other objects that's using record types. It has to be the same record type, and then inline editing is available. And let's see, will you be having webinars like this in the future? Yes, we plan to schedule little webinars like this, just little 1-hour best practice webinars on the second Thursday of every month at the same time. And then we have another question here about printing. So let me get to that just here in a second. And so basically the last part of this is how you can engage with StarForce. And you can sign up for a free Salesforce assessment where we'll actually use a screen share, go in and take a look and see how you're doing and make any recommendations. You can follow us on Facebook, and you can follow us on Twitter, and you can also read our blog at starforce.com. And so as far as printing, yes, you can print list views. When you do click the printable view, and that's assuming that your profile has that permission, it will come out exactly as you see it. You will not be able to change that. That is one of the nice things about reports, is you can actually export the report to Excel. So with printing on a list view, you would literally, you just have to, what you see is what you get. Do we have any other questions? All right. Well, I will keep this open for about another 5 minutes if anybody does have any other questions, and then we will go ahead and end our meeting. Let's see, we did have one here. If you adjust the column widths, do you get the adjusted column widths on the printed version? You know, I've never tried that. So I've never actually tried to do that. So let's take a look and see what it looks like. If we go back to our, let's see, we have that bounced context that has a longer column. And then we go print. And no, it doesn't, but it does give you the, it does word wrap. So it doesn't give you the longer column, but it does word wrap in the printable view. Very good question. That's one thing I like about Salesforce. I learn stuff every day. Can we quickly go over the differences between list views and reports and when you would go with one or the other? List views are, for the big difference is list views, it's just the single object. And whereas reports, you can do linking object, accounts with contacts. List views is just a single record. List views you're going to use more in a daily type of work where you can just come right to your list of, say, my opportunities closing this month, and it's right here, and I've got a nice, easy click into it. I don't have any closing this month, so let's go maybe closing next month. So I can get right into it, and I can come back to it at any time. The report, you would have to go to your report folder, run the report, click into the record, and then run that all over again. So the list views are mini reports. That's exactly what they are. It's just like little mini reports that you can also sort and filter on, maybe by account name or by close date. And so you know which ones you want to click into and work on quickly. And let's see. All right, so it looks like that's all the questions we have so far. And Doug, I do thank you for your comments, and I hope this has helped you guys. Like I said, it's just some things as we work with customers using Salesforce. These are things that we are finding that people are doing, and so we thought we'd just kind of give you some best practices to help you out, so that, to make your life either as an administrator or as an end user easier. One thing that I really like with the mass edits with list views is when I've got, say, I just put in a new pick list or something and I want to go back and put everybody as a value. Well, you can't do that, and not unless you do a mass update. So say we've got a new pick list of, say, I don't know, maybe account rating or something like that, even though it's already there. We'll use rating, and, I want to set everybody up as neutral at this point, or maybe satisfaction rating, and I want to set everybody as a neutral. I can go back. I can then do a mass edit through my list views and set everybody up. So if you're only doing a small number, it's great to run it that way. If you're doing a large number, yeah, you probably want to use the data loader or the Excel connector if you're on Professional Edition. But for, a small number, 200 records, 500 records, even 1,000 records, that's only 5 times through the list, and refresh it. So, it's something to think about if you do have to do any mass updates. All right, well, I do thank you. I thank you all for joining, and I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting now unless we have any more questions. All right, thank you very much, and you guys have yourselves a great day, and I hope to see you back in a month. Thank you for enjoying the webinar. Thank you for attending, and please, feel free to engage us. You can either go sign up for our free assessment. We'll take a look at your setup. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or check out our blogs. And hopefully you can, we'll teach you something else that's new. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.